I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It's time for headlines. We've got Tech Talk on Double T 97.3, doublet97.3.com. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Foreman. Let's dive into the juice, and we will start with some Texas Tech football news. Gus, we got about 4:30, I believe. I think Don Williams had it first. David Collier also in on the action, but Texas Tech will not see the return of offensive line coach Stephen Hamby. Of course, Hamby's been the coach the past 2 years. There is not any information as of now for the reason of the departure or between the sides or anything like that. So the one thing we know is you will be looking for a new offensive line coach, and there will be someone else in that role next year, as it will not be Stephen Hamby. Of course, the offensive line...
Tough deal.
I'm not, suggesting anything here, but the offensive line has been something of an issue that you've been trying to improve. Tried to get older through the portal the past couple of years while adding in youth and building them up and getting them better. So you'll be in some sort of transition now, even with the guys that you're bringing in through the portal and those same guys you were trying to age up and get better as you try to improve that unit.
Yep, some new faces there, and you're exactly right. It's a good way to say it, sort of age up, developmental situation with a bunch of those guys that were early signees of, Coach Joey's, and here we go. Hopefully that's what everybody wanted. I hate it for Hamby, but it's tough business.
Business, keyword there.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Kliff Kingsbury, he will be the pulled the rug this weekend. Everything was pointing to him being the offensive coordinator for the Raiders. One person in this studio rejoices that it's with a different team for sure. He will be with the Washington Commanders. Same role. He'll join Dan Quinn over there in that staff as the offensive coordinator. Contract talks started to break down late Friday night, and into Saturday we got the news that it would not be with the Raiders, and instead goes with another defensive coach, which I think is interesting and probably something I would guess would be looking for, and probably didn't want to go like, okay, well, yeah, he's going to be the offensive coordinator, but he's going to an offensive coach that's going to have a lot of input or maybe more of the input. And so even if it would have been with the Raiders and it would have been with Antonio Pierce over there, it would have been the same, I guess, situation as far as him having control of the offense. Not same situation for contract talks or anything like that, but the same thought process of he's going to a place where the offense is his. He's going to a place that has a defensive-minded coach that will hand him the reins with that, and going to the Commanders instead. So he will be in the same division as the Cowboys. So where I rejoice that
might be tough on some
don't
folks.
have to, I was going to say where I rejoice and was excited that you won't be there with my beloved Chiefs 2 times a year rooting against him. On the other side of that coin are even more, I would guess, Dallas Cowboy, Texas Tech fans going, right. Oh, come on. Man, here we
Tough
go.
Deal.
Yeah. For Red Raider basketball, as we've talked about, not the results you wanted over the weekend. You lose to Cincinnati 75-72 at home. Took a 1-point lead late in the game with a step back 3 from Pop Isaacs. What seemed like a clutch shot would be answered by an even more clutch shot from one Seamus Lukosius for the Bearcats, who was nails down the stretch and was tough to stop. And then, as we talked about, that final shot doesn't go your way, and you lose back-to-back games, looking to bounce back tomorrow on the road against a ranked Baylor team. You do stay in the AP top 25, though. So I'm wondering if you would stay in that top 25 ranking. You do. You come in at 23 today. So there's some good news there for you. Talked about the AP being sticky.
Yeah, no doubt. Net ranking, I think when I looked yesterday, there was 4 teams in a row. Yeah, Cincinnati, Texas, OU, Tech, 30, 31, 32, 33. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah. For the ladies' side, not much better. Cincinnati wins at home 74-56. First and fourth quarters really got you here, as you were outscored 20-9 from the jump. But you do claw back, and this was 50-49, I believe, going into the fourth quarter. And they used a 14-point run to really run away from this in the final quarter, and you lose 24-7 against the Cincinnati team that honestly has not been that great in Big 12 play. Felt like a good opportunity on the road, but once again, the road was not kind to the Lady Raiders.
Yeah, that feels like missed opportunities with that one and the one in Provo. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they and again, we're just talking about that in terms of when you look at that schedule and you see games in Austin and Waco and some of those other environments are probably going to be a little more challenging than Provo and Cincinnati.
Right, because, I mean, this wasn't a resume building game. It was a resume tarnishing game. Like, if you did go in there and beat the Bearcats, it was going to be great, to move to 6-4 instead of fall back to 5-5. But it's not one like the committees are looking at. Oh man, they beat the Bearcats. Instead, I was like, oh,
right,
they lost to the Bearcats, and so
that RPI looming down there in the 70s. That's just it's an opportunity missed.
And there are your headlines. Hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, questions, all of that. Welcome there. We got this from Bobby Hot Dogs for the ER list we went over a little bit ago. What is this? Tales from Kansas? They did not designate a state. So, Gary with a great dad joke here. Why did the chicken cross the road?
I don't know.
It was in the backseat of a car on the way to the ER.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so the chicken was in the car when this man person goes to the emergency room. We didn't even ask, why was the chicken in the car in the first place?
Yeah. And then, I guess it was a very thoughtful act for him not to you don't want to leave them in the car, right? It's like you don't want to leave kids in the car, pets in the car. About that.
Have you seen that? You've seen where they'll leave a dog in the car, right? But they'll leave the AC running, and still people have been fooled because they just see a dog in the car and they don't look around or anything. What do? They just break the window, right? And so people will put up a note like, "Don't worry, the air conditioning's on." And if they're like real, just like really just that dog is their baby, like they'll maybe even like put on his like, I don't know, a song that soothes him, or like put on a show if they have it, a screen, and they'll put that on the note, right? Like he has air conditioning, he can breathe, and he's listening to the Beach Boys. It's his favorite. Could you imagine walking up on a car and having that note with a chicken?
Yeah.
He's listening to Old MacDonald on repeat. Don't worry, a bok here, bok there. He's fine. Why was the chicken in the car? T-Money says, shop vac guy, probably the same guy that does the diaper spa. Radiation Station says, Nate Bargatze has a great bit about being bit by a snake and having to get it together and catch the snake. He's like, who told you that's what you're supposed to do? The snake? Whose side are you on? I like Nate Bargatze. I have something to go look up later.
Yeah.
I'm in.
I agree.
Speaking of SNL hosts.
Funny dude. Yeah, that's right.
I enjoyed his.
Yeah, I did too.
This on the chat line, the men's game was disappointing, but what the heck happened to the women? That's the kind of game that will not help in the tournament chances. I mean, yeah, totally agree. That was as much work as you needed to do, and that opportunity still in front of you. It's just, I mean, you've got to sneak a couple wins that I think will surprise us, right?
Yeah, and that's I mean, especially as an NCAA tournament resume goes. I mean, they're going to have to go on a heater now, and that's a tough deal, and that's going to include a bunch of road wins, and those have been hard to come by.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Gus, I didn't know I needed to be on this train today, but I'm glad I'm aboard.
You liking the new? You digging the new edition thing or just the Bobby Brown thing?
Probably the New Jack Swing.
There you go. Yeah, I didn't know that. I did not know that was the name of that music style until I just Wikipedia'd Bobby Brown to see that he was for sure alive, and yeah, he is. Because Wikipedia is what you trust, right?
Wow,
that's the one you should
alive, unless
put your faith into. Yeah, no, I was just wrong. I don't know why.
Could be in the clink right now. There could be a lot of rehab. Who knows? But
where in the world is Bobby Brown? This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line for what started this Bobby Brown kick. Robert said, I still have that song on my playlist.
Nice.
Let's go to, I believe we have a double dip play of the day, correct? So plays of the day.
Here's Brady, and Brady for the moment avoids the sack, slips away. He's going to launch it deep, and it's going to be intercepted by Chase Blackburn. The linebacker is all the way down the field. That play is over at the 8-yard line, but you got Brady throwing it all the way down the field. You had Gronkowski. Toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
I know we touched on this a couple segments back, but with the Super Bowl being 6 days away, it's only fitting that we recap some anniversaries, as the first one was a highlight from Super Bowl 46, the sequel, so to speak, between Eli and Brady. And the second highlight was the James White touchdown to deliver the final blow to the Atlanta Falcons for the 28-3 game.
Is it still wild to you guys? Because it is to me that like the Super Bowl Tom Brady killer was Eli Manning. Now I get it. Like it was, you could say, well, really it was like the Giants' defensive line, and I think you should look at that first. But still, the quarterback that took down Tom Brady twice in the biggest game of the NFL was Eli Manning.
Right. And
it's ridiculous when I think about it.
As a Cowboys fan, it makes me sick because the two quarterbacks that took Tom Brady down were from NFC East teams.
And that typically irks my Cowboy friends because there were, in the years in between there when the Giants were pretty lame. And then they'd cycle back up and go win the big deal with him shooting down with Eli shooting down Brady, and then 2 years later getting sacked 14 times and throwing 4 picks or whatever against the Cowboy, and they're like, "This is the guy,
right?" This is the guy that looked like one of the his 2 playoff runs, especially the first one, where he gets a couple rings. Just look like this is the best quarterback in the NFL. Eli Manning cannot miss.
Right.
He can do no wrong.
Exactly.
And I guess to your point, too, what's more ridiculous if you didn't watch any of the Super Bowls or really any of the playoffs and you just watched regular seasons and I went and told you, okay, Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl wins over Tom Brady, or Nick Foles has a Super Bowl win over Tom Brady.
That's what we love about sports, right?
To kind of add insult to injury there, is that Cowboys didn't beat Tom Brady throughout his entire career until that wild card playoff game before he retired. And he was way past his prime.
Yeah. He said, the first time I get beat by the Cowboys, I'm done. I'm done for real. I'm not going to be done and then come back. I'm not going to have to return a bottle of wine that maybe or maybe not a Peyton Manning had sent me in honor of my retirement and then ask for it back. Funny story.
There's an old line in St. Louis Cardinals lore about Bob Gibson, of course, great pitcher in the 60s and 70s. And in his very last game, he gave up a home run ball to if Chuck Hines is listening, he'll remember this name, but Pete Lecoq. Pete Lecoq was sort of a spare major leaguer, kind of a bench guy, platoon guy, whatever.
Are we sure that's not an SNL character?
Actually, Pete Lecoq's stepfather was the the longtime TV host of not Wheel of Fortune, but one of those game shows. Peter Marshall. You might remember Peter Marshall. That was his stepfather. Anyway, I think that's right. But Pete Lecoq hits a 3-run tank or a grand slam or whatever it was off of Bob Gibson, and supposedly they asked him hey Bob, when did you know it was time for you to retire? And he went, when I gave up a home run to Pete Lecoq. And so it's sort of what you just said. And I'm playing off of what you just said, which was, hey Brady, when did you know it was time to retire? Well, we lost to the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's funny.
A little too soon for that, but yeah.
Hollywood Squares.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
From 66 to 1981. Well, just
that's
learning all sorts of stuff today, Gus.
Yep. And then Hines, usually you bring up old 70s and 80s Kansas City sports figures, and Chuck, especially when you get in the 80s, Chuck can tell you stories about covering them. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I went down to the dugout one time, and whatever.
There was Lecoq sitting right there.
Pete Lecoq walking
empty
around
cup on his head, pretending it was a hat.
Right. Pete Lecoq walking around in a jock strap. Whatever. Yeah.
This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Kliff should be a quarterbacks coach, not an OC. In the 4 years he was with Arizona, his offense ranked 16th, 13th, and 11th, and then 21st in the league. But as a Cowboys fan, I think that's good news. He is their OC instead of the QB's coach. It will be interesting in a lot of different things in this situation that I'm interested about. One is you are starting off offensively in a pretty bad spot. I'm curious where they go with the quarterback, right? And do they take just like Drake May second, or do they make a move to get Caleb Williams? What is that story going to be like here in a couple months when we get into NFL draft territory? And then, how much better, because I've seen this. Hey, there's my guy. Right there. It was very exciting.
Take a deep breath,
right
fella.
That's
he's
right.
older than I would have guessed.
Mitch Holtz has been there.
I thought he was
forever.
He sounds like a spring chicken.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's the mark of a great play-by-play guy.
I
right?
agree.
But how much better can it be? Not having to do everything that a head coach has to do. Because like I said, with Quinn, and this was going to be the same thing if he were to be at the Raiders with Pierce. It's going to be like, let you fly or fail on your own over there. But to the texter's point, I've seen a lot of NFL, maybe NFL hate is too strong, but some bashing of this hire, and he hasn't earned it, or it's not going to be, they don't understand why an NFL team would be interested in him. And what I don't understand is their shock that not just one team would be after him, but quite a few would be interested. With all of the quarterbacks that he's worked with from collegiate to the NFL level, there are a lot of players, and I get the collegiate level, and maybe this is to the texter's point about being a QB's coach, the offense and the offensive mind part is what is so attractive about Kliff Kingsbury, right? And the upside of what it can be, and the creative part of no one is looking, and maybe this is what's happening, where you're looking at some of the overall records and going, well, he can't be an offensive coordinator. Well, no, I think the head coaching thing is what we're figuring out and have learned isn't going to go well. And I don't think, at this point, it's hard to say it ever would go well. Maybe he takes off in this role, right? I'm sure Cowboys fans, again, if you're a Cowboys Red Raider mix, have mixed feelings because you're rooting for him, right? But at the same time, you don't want the Commanders to take over that division. But maybe, if it does go as well as possible, and in a couple of years we're back to seeing like, well, maybe he's back on the head coaching block and head coaching conversation.
I'm less surprised by the offensive coordinator deal than I was the head coaching thing, for whatever years ago. And I mean, he clearly went all in with Kyler Murray and and sank with that ship, unfortunately.
Watch film. Stop playing Call of Duty.
Oh my gosh!
So
I mean,
you had to work that in your contract. You had to work that in your contract.
Think about his career. I mean, what's that dude going to be?
I don't know. We'll see what it looks like next year when he's healthier. But I mean, you can be physically healthy and still not have it mentally and above the shoulders, which didn't help. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3, Double T973.com. Keep hitting us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, questions, reactions from the weekend, all that welcome there. You can also call us on the Visual Edge IT hotline. That number is 806-771-0973. The majestic voice you'll hear is Ben Porman. He'll welcome you in over there. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, hanging out with you. Hour and a half more with us as we take you up to 6 o'clock. We got this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line as well for Kliff Kingsbury. With Kliff being OC for Washington, Stephen A. Smith criticized him as the offenses never really accomplished anything. How would you rate Kliff's OC skills?
Well, I think it's what he does best. I mean, of all of his assets, that's it. So many industry people, coaches, people who coach against him, credit him for being really innovative with this play calling and that sort of thing, which is, if I'm not having to defend him, all I do is sit up there and watch and, see results. But it sure is interesting to hear how industry people, coaches and people in the game talk about him like, being hard to coach against. And yeah, it's so I would assume the OC thing is what he's best suited for, at least at this point in his career. I mean, I think everybody sort of. I think we were all, I guess, if you're a fan of his, pleasantly surprised for him that he sort of jumped the line to NFL head coach after being let go here, but
it was one of the weirdest,
yes.
Especially from an outsider, like an outside point of view, one of the weirdest coaching changes and coaching trajectories you will ever see. And if you were in that time seeing that hire, like scratching your head, I don't think anyone would have been like, oh, why don't you get this? Because how many times do you see that a coach, be one at a school for as long as he was, and I get that is a special condition because, he is a Texas Tech guy, which gave him a longer leash. But then you finally see that separation and then go all the way up to an NFL head coaching gig. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. And so, like the head scratching part of that, totally get and would understand that reaction. But you're in that circle and you shouldn't be if you're a Kliff fan or if you're Kliff Kingsbury, you're not apologizing for anything, right? I mean, you didn't hire right? You didn't hire you. You're not the one that's coming to you. You're not bringing yourself contract options. And so the bashing of it, though, because like I said, like the texter pointed out Stephen A. Smith. I was telling you about like a Damon Amendolara thing I was watching, calling him like counterfeit Kliff. I don't understand why that's getting bashed. And like the Steelers, who just went through a horrible offensive year, who just took Arthur Smith, who the biggest complaint was him wasting high-end young talent with the Falcons. Like that's targeting with Kliff Kingsbury, but not like the Arthur Smith one. Right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense that it's not both sides. I don't understand if, is this just the easier one for some reason to go after? Because I guess Kliff's name has been thrown out so much and is, I don't know, maybe a more recognizable face because who cares about the Falcons? I don't know. I don't understand where the disconnect is between that. And I'm not saying it's going to work out for sure with the Commanders because I think that is an uphill climb. Because one, you've attached yourself to just a bad football team, even just being ahead of the offense and just being the coordinator. You are a designated scapegoat.
Oh, sure.
Right? When you join a bad team as a coordinator in the NFL, you are, if it goes wrong in year 2, you're probably the first to be let go, right? And so I will say, if it doesn't work out here with the Commanders, I mean, I guess he keeps on, in a good way, has an option. He's certainly going to have an option somewhere, but as the conversation of waiting to see would he be an offensive coordinator in the NFL? Because again, this seems like this is the dreamed up scenario where you just have to be in charge of the offense. You don't have to be a head coach. You're not recruiting on the college level. You don't have to deal with any of that. Again, with the NFL, you don't have to deal with all of the decision making. You are in control of the offense. It doesn't matter, on the other side, if it is a worse team in the NFL or a better team, you're in charge of the offense of some of the best players in the world, like the elite football players. There's only so many that can make the NFL. And it will be interesting, too, if you do see the move, and even though it's the offensive coordinator and it's not the head coach part, like as much as he was attached to Kyler Murray, right, for that move, if it does get to Caleb Williams, then how much he would be associated, like, to the hip with that situation.
No doubt. And it's sort of a do-over in that respect. And I mean, and the Murray thing's so fascinating because how far were they into? Was he 2 years into his career when the thing that floated was the contract extension and the big raise, but like a mandated study time preparation? Like
I think that is post year 3.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay.
Because it was getting
like
into where you were closer to the end or closer to the end of his rookie contract.
To Murray's contract.
When it would be the first, big one. And that the way that got snuck out too.
Right. It was And
that wasn't supposed to get out.
That was like,
yes.
And the thing is by leaking, it's sort of like lawyers in a trial saying stuff that they know is going to get struck. Jurors disregard that, but it's hard for jurors to disregard if they just heard it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it can't be the deciding factor, but it's a ploy. However that got thrown in there. Oh yeah, we'll pull that back. But the optics are, wait, did the Cardinals just mandate study time for their starting quarterback? What is that all about? Mm-hmm. Oh, they brought it back. Oh, nothing to see here.
No. You guys weren't supposed to know that. Oh, but it was supposed to be in the contract. Like
right.
that was the whole point of it.
Right. And then the Cardinals are stuck with that one in a way that like the Cowboy fans get loud about Dak, and that's fine. But like if you talk about a team that's stuck with a deal, oof, because the Cowboys, it's just a conversation we had a while back. The Cowboys are 12-win team that's hadn't punched the thing in on the playoff side. What would you rather have, that or Kyler Murray that you're
Give
having
me,
to go,
give
now, Kyler,
me
we're
the
going to need
Cowboys situation 10 out of 10 times.
Kyler, we're going to need you to study today from 2 to 4.
Mm-hmm. And you add in, health worries.
Right, and then he popped his ACL, and that's his. Maybe he conditions well, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But just reputation-wise, do you think about Kyler Murray and go, oh, no, that dude's in there crushing it on the conditioning and the preparation? No.
And then, how do you play under fan scrutiny and media scrutiny? Because, right now, that's what – it wasn't a good thing. You didn't have, fans oh, he's just like me. I play Call of Duty. That wasn't their reaction. So, can you avoid – one, can you mature? Can you grow as a leader? Can you be that dude in the huddle that has everything locked down? Or will you lean into being a head case and being fragile and being something easily broken mentally, which of all the positions to not have that, quarterback is kind of the most important.
Right.
Yeah. We'll see how it all works out. It's going to be a fun ride, I'll say that. It's going to be entertaining.
Absolutely.
It's entertaining.
I'm happy for Kliff, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3, Double T 97.3.com. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Poorman behind the glass, taking care of us. We got this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Jordan. Wasn't one of those Super Bowl Giants teams. Didn't they lose every home game in a season? So the 2011 Giants team, which was really, in retrospect, the funnier one that won because they were 9-7 in the regular season. They were 4-4 at home. That also included a 4-game losing skid. Let's see. 2 of those were teams that they would see in the playoffs, losing to San Francisco, which is who they won the NFC Conference Championship game against. And then the game before that in the divisional round, they had lost to Green Bay at home, beat Green Bay on the road in the playoffs. So just a very, very funny Super Bowl team to think about, unless you're a Cowboys fan again and don't want to think about any sort of Giant success. But just the optics of that is the team.
Yeah,
that's the team that beat Tom Brady.
And, yeah, no doubt.
Goodness. Gus, how does it feel being the hippest dude on tech radio?
Okay. What are we attributing that? Is it just I'm just being anointed?
General aura. I second it.
Well,
you have a vote over here, dude.
I'm flattered. I don't know what to say.
Although you do apparently have competition. Somebody responds, "What about Chuck?"
I agree.
I vote you. You're my vote, far and away.
I did enjoy a evening at Blue Light the other day. See some live music. It was good. You want to hear about all my thoughts about Blue Light and who needs to play there next, or are you good?
I'm good. Let's find out what's going on,
yeah, exactly.
Gus, have you ever been to an ER for any reason?
Yeah. Nothing.
You made it, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's good. I think I've been to the emergency room twice. Yeah.
Yeah, and
obviously I made it through as well. So
yeah, and
that's good.
Those are the doctors and nurses. If you think about the nature of that work, bullets and all the real stuff.
Oh, the real.
Right.
This person can skip me. I know I'm in the emergency room, but
right.
Not that you're making that decision. Ben, have you been to the emergency room?
Fortunately, no, but I did work at a hospital for 2 years.
Oh, really?
I took patients either admitting them to the observation unit or they would be discharged on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally have never been to the ER before, but I did circle around those halls quite a few times.
So you might have something to really add on to this list that I have for you guys today. A conversation has been going around for the strangest and weirdest things they've seen patients bring into the ER with them. All right, I'll go through some of the highlights, see what you guys think. The first one is just that they've clumped together a lot of things into one because they're all in a similar story. Just says lots of animals. So like a turtle is on this. Someone's brought a rabbit, a helper monkey, a flying squirrel, an emotional support duck, which I'm not knocking support animals, but an emotional support duck seems a little ridiculous. And a live chicken because they didn't want to leave it in their hot car. So first thing on
Well, Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck.
Why was the chicken with you in the first place?
Yeah.
And I do understand like not wanting to leave it in your car, not because of the like, oh well, do I leave the air conditioning on for him? Like if that thing like is going to the bathroom in the back seat or something, and you can't control that. You can't train a chicken, right? If you've trained a chicken, let me know. I'll be very impressed. The second thing on this list, speaking of chicken, is a half-eaten raw chicken.
Oh.
The guy wanted them to test it to see if it was raw.
What did your cat drag that in or what?
This is like, which is like, yeah, like did you eat half of it and then you were like, wait, this is awfully pink. I know I like my chicken medium rare, but this seems a little bit too much. How about their own thermometer? The reason was so when the nurse took their temperature, they could double check to see if theirs worked. I can get behind that. See if yours reads the same. How about a suitcase full of French toast, Gus? This is fourth on this list.
Okay.
No syrup, no butter, just French toast. French toast on the go. A half-eaten can of beans.
You might just head like, hey, yeah, come on in, Clint. Just take him up to the psych ward.
From the doctor.
Sadly.
Oh, sorry, we have to leave behind this suitcase of French toast. I will not let you know if it will still be here. The suitcase will be. Would you eat French toast offered out of a briefcase?
Why not?
No? Okay.
No. Maybe if it was like frozen, like it had just, if it was still frozen, then I'd go, okay, all right, that can still be prepared. But yeah, if you were serving it up from there, probably not.
A half-eaten can of beans, Gus, because the patient wanted to finish them. Just leave it, dude.
Again, probably more of these things they're amusing, but there's probably like genuine sadness attached to this. Like, yeah, he's off his meds, or
we choose not to
her
focus
meds or
on the
whatever.
sadness
Like,
here.
Ugh, mercy.
How about an onion that just fell out of the patient's pocket? I don't know why that was there. Here's one of my favorite ones on here. A guy brought in a snake, okay? He brought in the snake that bit him.
But I thought you're supposed to do that if you get bit.
Right. I've heard, so like,
Maybe
I've had friends that have gone on like mission trips and they've talked about this. Like if depending on the country you go to, if you go to a place that has a lot of venomous snakes, that's something they tell you. I wouldn't be able to do this, dude. If I got bit by a snake, just leave it.
You need the CPR more than the defibrillator for the heart attack. It's not poisonous, Gus. You can stop.
It's like
I'd be over there flailing and speaking in tongues and
wanting
last rites and all the things.
I've never tried to catch a snake before. I do not want the first time of me being flustered because chances are I would venture to guess you didn't know that snake was there. And you know what? If you did get bit by it and you knew it was there, you're probably messing around with it. You shouldn't be, but I would venture to guess, Gus, if 95% of the people that have been bit by snakes didn't know the snake was there until you were in range of being bit. And now you're like, I'm not going to be calm during that. I'm not going to be calm enough to suddenly, remember like, oh yeah, I need to catch this thing that just bit me and just sent me to the hospital.
Right.
My arm is swelling.
No, I know.
But I've heard that before. I just don't think I could do it. I just don't think I'd be able to do it.
That's oof.
And last but not least, a guy came in with a vacuum, the vacuum end of a shop vac in a very sensitive area.
Oh.
He claimed they say claimed he was trying to remove a kidney stone.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Dang.
That was I have so many questions. I wish they would have went more in depth on the reasoning for some of these. I know that they're in the ER and they probably have other things, but how do you sneak that you're working on hey, why do you have the shop vac here? For real.
Yeah, on this segment last week you did the Pizza Hut that accidentally had the circumcision thing in there.
Unforeseen circumcisions.
Yeah. Michael Che and what's his name on Saturday Night Live, the news deal, they spoof that one. They did that and then, wrote their punchline off of it. So, classic, dude. So funny. I giggle. I was like, hey, Clint talked about that the other day. I wish I would have been witty enough to say what they said.
I don't understand how that made it to the door. You didn't even. I get spell check.
Unforeseen circumstances.
Autocorrect gets everybody, but read the note if you're going to put it on a business door.
Yeah, or have anyone else read it.
Oh my goodness.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Welcome back to Tech Talk, the high school fan zone over on 100.7 The Score. Coronado at 6, Estacado 620, Lubbock High 640, Monterey at 7 o'clock as they join Garrett Luft here in the First United Bank studio. If you're looking for some big Monday action from the Big 12, we'll have it at 7:45 over on 100.7 The Score. And it is the Sunflower Showdown, a little rivalry action, KU at Kansas State. Of course, the Jayhawks coming off a big win over the weekend against Houston. Kansas State has been reeling of late. They just lost. I joked saying, as bad as it's been, if they lose at Oklahoma State, that'll be a totally different feel. They do, but on the other side, if Kansas State finds a way to win tonight and upset your rival, things will feel a lot better, a lot quicker. We'll see what happens. You can hear that game on 100.7
I would love to see Kansas win that. I legit would.
Well, I didn't even tell him to click that.
No, he didn't. That is an interesting matchup, given where both programs are at this point in time. Kansas is so used to facing that sort of thing. Think about it. 7 days from now, we'll be doing the same thing, prepping ourselves for a big Monday 8:00 game against the Jayhawks. I think the Jayhawks have 4 of those this year, which will give you a pretty good indication about who, the media rights partners view as the most, whatever. Most,
draw.
Yeah, the biggest draw, whatever.
Sure.
And that makes total sense in hoops. But yeah, the big Monday comes to Lubbock this time next week, and that'll be it's
going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one. And
both teams on a short turnaround, obviously.
And as you try to bounce back from back-to-back losses, it's going to be tough, and we'll get plenty into the game tomorrow as you go to Baylor. UCF, I think if you were to pin, and again, this changes, especially for Big 12 basketball, because you just don't know. And when you look at it this year and you had 4 new teams, hey, what was everybody going to look like in conference play? UCF does feel a little bit like it could be a trap game right now, because you're facing a Baylor team that's super talented. They've got a couple of guys who are, depending on where you're looking, mock draft freshmen who have played really well. And by the way, since Big 12 play has started, those aren't even the 3 guys that have been doing most of the scoring. It's been the older guys like the Ray J. Dennis and guys like that. They're in their starting 5, and they've just started to really pick it up. They went through that 3-game skid, and now they've started to look a whole lot better and a whole lot closer to what I think people expected of them. So you get to go deal with that tomorrow. And then you have a UCF game that feels like, okay, well, you really need to get that one. especially after losing to Cincinnati. You really need to get UCF at home, who's been better than expected. And then on the other side, regardless if they have looked worse on the road or at home, which the Jayhawks have, it's still a big matchup. And it is a home game that whenever the conversation was, you have space to drop a home game, it was more looking at a game like that and not Cincinnati.
Sure.
And so I think that is very, very it could be a trip up. I don't think it will be. I feel confident. You got to get through Baylor before we even focus on UCF. Sure. And I'm not saying, it's not like they're sitting in there going like, all right, guys, forget about Baylor. Let's drop the game plan for the Knights.
Yeah, that's just us talking there. But yeah, that Cincinnati game was it's just so hard to think about it. And that, you and I played this exercise right out of the chute here at 3:00. But if we had talked about, that game because of the disparity in rebounding going in and just how stinking big Cincinnati is, if we had talked about, all right, you're going to be within 4 of them in rebounding, would you have taken it? Yeah, probably. You're going to shoot more free throws. You're going to make more than they attempt. You want that? Yep. Turnovers, even. You good with that? Yep. Offensive rebounds, which, and I had a text in my group text going, they're killing us on the offensive boards. And I'm not arguing with it. They kept so many balls alive. That was the thing. So, just wingspan galore on that deal. Big dudes. And so even
long, and that's what you teach. If you can't get it, launch it back
and
to the perimeter. Get it to a guard.
Right. And
find
a
way.
And it
keep
felt
it alive.
grueling to us. All right. Their offensive rebounds 17, our offensive rebounds 16. Now 17 is a big number. But so you don't take solace in that, but you go, so there's not a big disparity there.
Yeah, you don't feel good about allowing the 17, but as far as keeping it even,
right,
and especially in the second half, that's what allowed you to stay in the game and be in the game.
Right.
Was your own offensive rebound. Part of it was your own offensive rebound.
Yeah, and us 19 for 24 from the line, pretty good night. Them 10 for 10, pretty good afternoon actually. But but again, points in the paint. You think all those big dudes. Tech 30, Cincinnati 28. Second chance points. And now you're thinking, okay, all right, Gus, we're cutting through all the stats. Second chance points. How many times did they get a hand on a ball, tip it out, blah, 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 get another possession? You won that column 17-13. Which, again, all of this to say, if we had told you all that ahead of time and laid it all out, all right, Clint, do you like your chances? I just gave you the statistical profile of the game. We would all probably go, you know what, I think I will take that. Especially after you watch that team take the floor and you're like, good Lord, how many big dudes. Oh, wait, look, look, another 6'10" guy off the bench to sub in for the other one. Oh, and by the way, Warren Washington's not coming out after from the second half deal because he's in there hooked up on IV. Lamar Washington in the building. Like all of that stuff stacked up. And then, here we are in the last 30 seconds. Guy curls off a little elbow jumper, hits it, and we go down and miss a shot that Pop takes a lot. Those little runners, little 12-footer.
That was a shot that was very reminiscent of the Northern Iowa shot from earlier this year. Like that's
right. And really something.
I had no issue with that possession. No, it just didn't work out.
He was going to his right to his shooting hand. I mean, a lot of those things were right. And one of the things that was difficult to do the other day, I keep saying night, but 5:00 game, but the other day against those guys was, just and they did a good job of drawing fouls. I thought the Red Raiders did off of sort of a handsy physical
something
Cincinnati
else that
team.
You started to do in the second half. That's something we talked about. That's a big physical team. You have to take advantage of that. And they did in the second half and pair that with offensive rebounding. That's something else. And that's something McCaslin pointed out too. Like that, this is how we were in striking distance in the second half. This is how we kept ourselves afloat and got, back into that zone where we had a chance to win the game. Now, it doesn't go your way. But it was the other side of it is like you've been in and at home already. It feels like it's like a game after game after game outside of Oklahoma State.
Right. And
one of these wasn't going to go your way.
And that's exactly right. How many games come in that last position, you're going to win them. But Our free throw shooting second half 12 for 13. And so it's just what you're saying, that the tough matchup. And I felt like I walked away from there, especially as you consider it and knowing about the sickness and all that stuff. I feel like, man, those dudes are playing their butts off, like effort-wise. They're getting after it, and McCaslin's finding a way. Like they're staying in these games where they're outmanned. I mean, just outmanned. Shorter bench and tired dudes, and they're hanging in these games. What a blast it's been to watch.
This has been the Tech Talk Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.